It takes the right skills and the right innovation to design and manage meaningful print marketing solutions. Welcome to Podcasts from the Printerverse, where we explore all facets of print and marketing that create meaningful communications and business success. Now, here's your host, the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse, Deborah Korn.
Hey everybody, Deborah Korn, wandering around Podcasts from the Printerverse, and I've just stumbled upon one of my favorite people out there, David Zwang. Hello, David Zwang.
Hi, Deb. How you doing?
Good. Who are you, what do you do, and what is a little bit of your history in the printing industry?
Okay. I am a consultant and an analyst. I've been doing it for a lot of years, probably 40 years now. And I specialize in process optimization, and those processes could be workflow processes in the back room in a production facility. They could be processes in the front room in an office or in a marketing department. And with the use of some technology, because I'm somewhat of a techno nerd, I kind of help people get things done more efficiently.
So, to use a car analogy, a lot of people are attracted to the outside of the car, you know, but really it's the engine that people should be most concerned with. Is that the same in printing?
Yeah, I would think so, absolutely. I mean, when I focus on things, I try to, cut through all the fluff, and et cetera, and really get down to what's going to make something more efficient, more effective. What's the process that's going to allow us to get from A to B sooner, faster, better, et cetera. And in many cases, especially in today's environment where things are changing so rapidly, a lot of that is being able to come in as an outsider, look at what's going on, talk to people, find out what they want to be when they grow up, and try to develop a map from where they are today to where they need to be, and work with them to get there.
Do all, presses come with built-in workflows or stuff, or can they be adjusted and upgraded and changed?
So workflow, first of all, it's a terrible term.
Okay.
Okay, and it is because it's become a marketing buzzword.
Okay, what would you want to call it?
Well, they're processes, and there are actually lots of different processes. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the processes that surround, for example, a print engine or a press, et cetera, are usually very specific to the area around and in that press, etc. But if you go into any kind of a production facility, I don't care if it's a design or a marketing facility, or it's a print production facility, print service provider, etc. When you look at their workflow and their processes start usually up at their customer, and they end usually back at the other end at their customer as well. Those tools or those workflows that usually come with these devices are very narrow in scope, and they don't really cover anything beyond, as I said, that small area around the device. In the case of some of the digital presses, they may cover some of connections or connectivity to finishing, but it's really not. It doesn't look at the whole picture.
If you were just to give some random piece of advice to the printers out there about, what to really, really investigate before they buy something, what area would that cover?
Before they buy something? Well, I think that, first of all, printers, as in the case of most people, would love to, they look for shiny things. They like the fancy boxes, the speeds, the stuff like that. The reality is that the most important thing to do is to sit down and look at what you're doing, look at what your requirements are, pretty much whiteboard it. Start at the beginning, go through it, bring your people in, throughout the process. Look at that process, see where kind of as I would call them, the low-hanging fruit is to go ahead and address. And some of it may be buying a machine. Some of it may be readjusting an existing workflow. Some may be kind of throwing out the workflow and starting over again.
Right.
But by doing that, what happens is everything becomes more optimized. Everything becomes much more effective.
So basically, we stop, drop, and roll, and revisit what's going on.
Exactly,
now.
and it's easy for us to say that, and
right.
But when you're in the heat of production, you basically you're waiting. The FedEx guy's coming or whatever it is, and you got to get it done by then. So the thought of just stopping to, sit back and take a look at things,
Right.
Sometimes becomes difficult. And I think that that's one of the areas where when you can bring somebody in who can help you,
Right.
it kind of helps foster that process.
They're also objective. They don't have an emotional connection to the
Exactly.
process or the people doing that process.
Absolutely, absolutely. People are not as anxious to make changes as
Right.
they normally would.
This podcast from the Printerverse is brought to you by Print Media Center. Print Media Center provides printspiration and resources to the print and marketing community with real-world insight for success, whether you're an industry supplier, print service provider, print customer, or consultant. Visit printmediacenter.com and connect with the Printerverse. Print long and prosper.
Not only do you give back by providing information and research to and great articles, by the way, and
Thank you.
an occasional clever tweet
Yeah.
to the industry, but you also are part of the Ghent Work Group. Why don't you tell people what that is?
Yes, I am part of it. I'm actually the chairman of the Ghent Work Group. Ghent Work Group was founded, I believe, in 2002. I've been the chairman for a little over 10 years now, about 11 years.
Really? I didn't know you were the big kahuna there for that long.
Absolutely. And the Ghent Work Group is actually a very interesting organization. It's an organization of experts within the industry, and when I say within the industry, it's actually within the broad industry. The expertise comes from people who are. We have vendor members. We have association members. So if they're printer associations or pre-press associations, we in many cases, they're members as well. We have educational members, and we have members, what we call industry members, which are basically people who or companies who may or may not be part of an association, but have a stake and want to be part of the creation of best practices, standards, etc., and kind of put their minds together with the rest of these fairly brilliant people, in all honesty, to develop solutions and processes that will better the industry. We've been doing it very, very successfully. Started with the development of what we call pre-flight profiles, to check files, that were coming from designers and agencies into a production facility, whether that be a publisher or a printer or whatever. And we have expanded that to look at other types of processes that kind of work within that whole range. And it's become it's a labor of love for all of us. We meet 3 times a year. We do a lot of work in the interim as well, and it's a very special kind of an organization. Lately, we've been kind of moving more towards packaging, because packaging is a very right now is in the midst of major changes because of digital print and digital manufacturing in the packaging arena, and which is going to be very exciting. And those kinds of things really demand new processes, new ways to approach them. So those are the things we're working on now. So
does your work end up in like my Illustrator program and are you responsible for those PDFXs, for example?
That's a good question. So yes, we have developed what we call best practices. In some cases, those best practices are in the form of setting files that you can import into Illustrator, or that you can import into Acrobat, or into other types of applications, and those help the designer or the PDF creator create the appropriate type of PDFX file. And I know that PDFX files can get confusing. There's a lot of PDFX files. The most important thing to know is that PDFX is specifically a standard developed for print. Mm-hmm. And as the technology has evolved, and as the design software creation companies like Adobe and Quark, etc., have developed new software, the requirements have changed, and as a result of that, PDFX as a standard has changed as well. So, how are people supposed to interact with the website? The Ghent Work Group website is a great website. First of all, everything on there is free. I know that may sound silly.
Talking to me, my life is a free model.
and people say, "Oh, nothing's free." I'm going to go in there and they're going to hit me for a couple of bucks.
Right.
No, that's not the case.
You can read 3 paragraphs. If you want to read the rest of it, it's $5.
No, it's free, and we have, and on the website you'll be able to find setting files. You'll be able to find education, and I think that's probably one of the most important things we have. We've got educational materials, white papers on a lot of different things that we've developed over the years,
and it's all free.
Exactly. We also have something very interesting that everybody probably could use, and that is we've developed test suites to actually test workflows. So you can download these files and put them in your workflows. You can put them in InDesign. You can put it in Illustrator. You can just run them through a RIP to see if your RIP settings are proper. And by doing that, and by running these test files, you can actually validate your RIP, which will help at that point, and your RIP settings, which will help at that point, or your production settings. It will help you get a more reliable output when you go to kind of meet your expectation, if you will, or meet the client's expectation.
So the website is gwg.org. Just
gwg.org.
That's easy.
Yes, and don't be intimidated when you get there. There's a lot of stuff there. Just kind of tool around and look for learning or education or downloads for setting files and things like that. And you'd be very surprised. There's a lot of really, really good information. There's even a wonderful document there that'll explain all about BDFX and the creation of files and how to create files that are good for cross-media kinds of work. Mm-hmm. Those are all things that we've developed because we know that they're part of what's in demand and what's needed.
Right. I mean, in a lot of ways, you're preempting disasters by helping people create files correctly.
Absolutely. That's our goal. That's our mission in life.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely understand. It is mine too, but not in the file creation, but the file creation in the imagination sense.
So the creativity part. Yes.
Yes, and you're the execution of it. So
absolutely.
We're chocolate and peanut butter. I just realized.
Oh my God, chocolate and peanut butter. As long as it's dark chocolate, I'm there.
Okay, we'll take it. Thank you so much for your time and for giving back in this major way to the industry for more than 10 years. David Zwang, you're the best.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast, try our other podcasts from the Printerverse. Listen long and prosper.
Hey everybody, Deborah Korn, podcast from the Printerverse, roaming around, and I've run into Ron Gilboa. Ron Gilboa, who are you and what do you do?
I work for Keepon Intelligence with the production technology team, and we're part of an organization that provides strategic guidance to industry suppliers and print providers, whether it's on technology, workflow, business processes. And a couple of years ago, we were acquired by Buyers Lab, and now we can also offer benchmarking and testing of equipment. So we have a whole suite of tools and solutions that can help vendors differentiate in the marketplace, understand the marketplace, and figure out growth strategies for themselves and for print providers.
What are some of the bigger obstacles you think that the technology is facing today as far as adoption?
Well, fundamentally, when the industry brings in new technologies, the key imperative is to do something good, something that maybe was not done before, that has some value that didn't exist before, say variable data printing, moving from monochrome to color, moving from color to specialty, dimensional and special colors and things of that nature. But also the back end of the migration to digital technology is, what are we doing to the supply chain? Is there any fundamental difference between how we did business 10 years ago and how we're doing business today? We've all heard about mass customization. Mass customization manifests itself in different ways in different industries. So the ability to, for example, reduce warehousing, eliminate waste, only produce what you need when you need it, or just-in-time manufacturing, all of these are becoming readily available with many printing technologies today in digital, in various industries. So ultimately, when digital technology is being adopted, whether workflow or actual print production, printers are looking to see how that makes their lives simpler, better, faster. And those are the key things that equipment suppliers need to look at, beside just having a cool technology. And that's usually the big picture. And the drive to mass customization, we see it as one of the things that raises the awareness of digital printing and raises the need to develop more products in various segments of the industry.
The printers who do investigate technology, eventually they're going to stumble upon white papers. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I hear most from them is that in many ways they don't believe the white paper because it's been commissioned. Mm-hmm. I don't personally have that view, but what is the value proposition of a white paper?
Well, I can see how someone says that a white paper that was commissioned by a vendor will be biased towards their technology. However, I think printers are intelligent and they look for facts and they look for things that will resonate with them. And in many, many cases, at least the way we structure white papers that we work on, we will look to see what are the facts of the product and how good the product is built and things of that nature to give a unbiased opinion on it. It could be based on our lab testing. It could be viewed with observations we have in the field with print providers. And typically we try to augment that with some real research data that we've done, and always make a point to speak to actual print providers that have that equipment to hear from them, why they chose it. They obviously made a purchasing decision, and they typically don't think they made a mistake. And if they bought a piece of equipment and they're happy with it, we'll try to understand why they're happy, how this has impacted their business. So ultimately, there's enough points of reference in those documents to give you, a fair and balanced approach to what the product represents. Obviously, a lot of these are done by vendors. Sometimes they're done by us directly, so they're not done by vendors, and they could be used ultimately as a promotional material by vendors, and that's why sometimes people feel a little bit iffy about them. But the fundamentals are, if the facts are in, and if the testimonials are right, and the market research supports some of the trends we're seeing, we usually feel pretty comfortable about them.
You can find more Printspiration in the Print Production Professionals group on LinkedIn. Great conversations, requests for help, and answers to questions from peers in the industry. Network long and prosper.
Obviously, Keypoint Intelligence / InfoTrends is considered a thought leader. And with the print industry evolving as fast as it is, what are some of the new areas that you're covering, and what are some of the areas that you hope to be covering?
Well, there is a lot of areas that are evolving around document production. We've seen a wave of, larger equipment and smaller equipment coming into the marketplace. Inkjet is getting more and more foothold after many, we had about 5 inkjet drupas.
Yeah.
But we now see the fruits of that. There are a lot of developments in, ink and paper interaction that we're very thrilled about to see how those are being resolved, and each company resolved them in a different way. So that's very, very interesting. We've seen evolution in printhead technology, which is very encouraging. However, also on the toner side, we see innovation. So we see products on the low end of the spectrum and product on the high end of the spectrum all starting to deliver on the premise of digital printing. Just-in-time manufacturing, variable data, customization, reducing of warehousing, and increasing level of consistency of output, which is very, very important. Those tenants that have started in commercial printing and quick printing and implants are now moving into packaging with folding cartons, flexible packaging, corrugated, direct-to-shape, and labels are all, starting to adopt technology very, very quickly. We've also expanded this into the industrial spaces. So following packaging, we've gone into textile printing, direct-to-garment printing, laminate printing for woodworking, as well as wall covering. And we see that also migrating into functional printing, printed electronics, and other ranges of applications. Those are all growth areas, very, very interesting. They're not all growing at the same rates and speed, but they're all adopting digital technologies. One of those areas that about the past decade has been, adopting digital, wholeheartedly, for example, is ceramic printing, where in Europe, a majority of tiles are printed digitally, and it's growing in China as well.
Is that with UV technology?
Nope. Those are, oil-based ink
Really?
used on top of wet tiles that then get glazed
Wow.
and eventually fired in an oven, that way in a kiln, the same way regular tiles are made. So that has happened, and the benefits there have been predominantly supply chain benefits, reducing redundancies, simplifying the printing process, not necessarily because you're going to go to a portal in order customize tiles, although some companies will do that. But fundamentally there, the benefits was for the supply chain and the operation, which was the key for the transition. And we see similar things happen in other areas.
Okay, now I have a crazy question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to make a print shop
Mm-hmm.
and you could only buy 3 pieces of equipment to start off, what would they be? You don't have to name brands, but what
Sure.
would the 3 pieces be?
Well, it varies.
Okay.
It depends because depending on which vertical industry you're coming from.
Okay, let's pick.
Pick an industry.
I will. Let's pick banking.
All right.
Actually, no, let's not. I want to pick something tangible. Let's pick a regional, somebody who's providing print to like a regional restaurant chain, or
It's like
could.
a small
A
local
small-
commercial printer.
Exactly.
Or maybe a sizable quick printer or something
Exactly.
like that.
Just the guy on the corner.
Well,
or the shop on the
I will
corner.
have a mixture of product on the shop. I will have a good document production system with, possibly 5 or 6 color stations and the ability to do long sheets. So I can do, restaurant menus that are folded, that I can do all sorts of invitations. I want to run papers up to maybe 450, 500 GSM if I need to, or very, very light materials on one side. That covers my document side of things. On the other side, typical promotional documents are accompanied with other accessories. They could be point-of-purchase signs. They could be banners, posters, and a range of other applications where I would likely try to have a machine that will be able to handle that. It could be a UV machine, because that UV machine will print on multiple materials. And I can make a banner on a PET or vinyl, or print it right on a foam core. And if I'm also giving away premiums with that event, or knickknacks, or trade show tchotchkes, as we call them, I can print golf balls, and I can print cell phone covers, I can print all sorts of pens and things of that nature. So we have some kind of a digital device to do pages and documents. We have a digital device to do wide format. It could be a hybrid machine. It can do rigids and flexibles. So I have one more.
Yeah.
So the one more
Make
could
it a
be
good one.
depending on which way the wind blows. If you're into extending the premium side of the business, a direct-to-garment printer could be a very interesting thing to have.
Interesting. Well, but can't you get like one of those wide formats? Can't do that as well?
No.
Okay, so that's a separate one.
Typically the direct-to-garment machines have special structures to hold the
Okay.
shirts and things of that nature. That's a very interesting, high-value, high-margin product if you don't have
Okay.
to do a lot of them. On the flip side of that, again, on the UV side, there's all sorts of new direct-to-shape machines that can do all sorts of oddly shaped products, like, some that we've seen in the marketplace. That could be another area for high-margin, low-volume product could be interesting. And I would also look at possibly starting to dabble with 3D printing for some of these applications. Although 3D printing is not a trivial place to be in, given that it's very fragmented and it's very complicated. So 3D printing need to be thought through exactly what's the value proposition.
Now, besides a folder scorer, which we'll need because we're making
You gotta have
brochures,
finishing.
let's talk about specialty finishing. What is one thing everybody in your dream shop? What is your specialty finishing?
I would say that any one of these shops needs to have a good cutter. One of those digital cutters. that could be used for creasing, cutting, or doing all of those custom work, maybe on a slower pace, slower volume, but definitely having something that can cut silhouettes, cut specialty designs and things of that nature, in addition to standard finishing. That's going to be something that's worth looking at.
So thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
You're amazing. How can people get in touch with you to work with you?
Sure. Ron Gilboa at keypointintelligence.com or at Gilboa R on Twitter. We're always open for business.
Thank you so much, Ron. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to podcasts from the Printerverse. We'd love to hear your feedback on our shows and topics that are of interest for future broadcasts. Please connect with us through printmediacenter.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcasts for alerts on new shows. Until next time, thank you for joining us and listening to podcasts from the Printerverse. Print long and prosper.